It is summertime, which means it is also the last summer break the high schoolers will have before they go to college, which invites the question, what am I going to study in college? And today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the college experience, but more towards picking your major, thinking about what you want to do in the future as a very young adult. And even if you're not a young adult right now, I hope this information can help you reflect or think about your future. First thing I want to say is the education system that we currently go through, right? It doesn't reveal all the choices that you have in life in order. So, when you play like a video game, you can look at the guide, you can look at the information, and you can look at the skill tree. You can look at the final output like the of your development, and then you can kind of start thinking about the path and try to develop your game character that way, right? The thing with education is we think that the educational system that we experience is this really legitimate and real and static and kind of a unmovable, immovable thing. It's like a really big construct. But you have to understand that it is just a result of some people thinking and making things up and being like, you know what, let's do this. And then that turned out to develop into this system. And yes, is it like a really well formed system that is really comprehensive in a lot of areas? Yes, but it doesn't mean that your life gets to be dictated by these systems. So, one example is in Overthink podcast. I recently heard it was the episode about reading, and so in the I think it's the 80s or 90s in New York City, there was an educational program that wanted to tackle the difficulty that children had when they were learning how to read. And so traditionally, learning how to read was all about memorizing the words and what they mean and then kind of trying to put the sequence together. But as everybody knows, kids have short attention spans and it's hard. And the educators were trying to think of like, how do we make the children learn how to read a little bit better efficiently? And then the system that they came up with is instead of looking at word, teaching it meaning, teaching retrieval like that, what happened was they gave children words and then a picture representation of it. And so when they looked at the word, they would associate it with the pictures and then see what happens, kind of like see something in their brain in terms of imagery. And as their reading would develop, they would learn how to do that by themselves. That was like the intent behind it, right? So a little ableist in my opinion too. But anyway, what this ended up doing is for words that people didn't know, after they went through this educational system, they didn't know how to imagine it because they never got the proper way of associating meaning to it. And so we have this entire generation of New Yorkers, as they were experiencing the education for learning how to read, who have now a significant reading problem. They can't read long text, especially in areas that they're not familiar with. And this is the output of a totally well-researched and well-established education system. So what I'm saying is, the education system may feel like this really concrete and a legitimate thing that, it created and devised by people who know what they're doing. That's not necessarily the case. So, as you go about into college and as you go about picking your major, it's really important to have this base understanding that the thing that you're actually interested in doing later in life, it might not even be a major yet. It might not even be a major at your school. So there you might be, if you don't have this context in your head, you might be thinking, man, like there's all these majors in my college, but I don't want to do anything. What's wrong with me? That's because you're defining yourself by the system. That's not really comprehensive. So I need you to understand that first. The system may not be big enough to contain you. So if you look at the course syllabus, if you look at the majors and concentrations of study, and you don't find something that you like, what I really want to recommend is look at other schools as well. Because that may be, the other schools' curriculums may have what you're interested in, but your school just might not coincidentally have it. And I told you that not everything unlocks at once, right? So for example, I got very, very interested in linguistics when I was in college. But before college, I didn't even know that was a thing. And in college, there's all these really niche majors and niche areas of study. But when we're high schoolers and when we're just entering into college, we don't know. And okay, so think about this. Suppose you're not that much of a motivated college student like I was. You just went to college because everybody kind of expects everyone to. Okay, and now what are you gonna think about your education? What are you think about in terms of your majors? You're gonna think in terms of the majors that you already know, right? And because you're not that like interested in your education, then you're not gonna know that, oh my god, our school offered this, like for example a concentration in like Korean literature in the early 1900s, and how it developed into like K-dramas. That was legit a thing in Cornell. And there's also like very specific disciplines. There's also like a lot of different cultural related things in the arts and sciences, and there's also like agriculture, there's like labor relations. I'm speaking in terms of like my college experience, but if you're not interested, you don't know. So you might miss out on all the areas that you could have potentially studied. So I'm kind of saying two different things, but number one, understand that what you might be seeing in your options for choices, it might not be all of it. Number two, what you think in terms of possible majors may be very limited. So it's important for you to look at many different things in terms of how to live life. Okay, the second big point I wanted to make is, to be completely honest with you, major and the correlation of what you end up doing in life is really not guaranteed at all to be related. So I happen to be a computer science major and I do computer stuff because of immigration. I needed a STEM degree for my military service, and then I got that. And then in order to get a H-1B visa for immigration purposes, I need to be in science and technology. But look at me, while I'm still in science and technology, I'm a life coach, right? Life coaching has nothing to do with computer software engineering, right? It has nothing to do with algorithms, and it has nothing to do with the education that I got. So when you look at other people's lives, there's plenty of examples like this, right? But why do we not think of things this way? Why do we tend to try to align with the major? Because we're trying to min-max, we're trying to optimize our life. Now, there are people who really have a strong sense of what they want to do since they're young, right? These people are like called prodigies. And part of the reason why I was so unmotivated in college was because I became a computer science major purely for realistic reasons. And then there I was sitting in the labs, and literally everyone else seemed like they wanted to be a computer scientist since like age 5. And so while I was playing Warcraft and being like, and while I was playing all these like, games, these kids were developing, software, and like they were coming up with algorithms. They were solving, algorithmic problems since their like 7th grade. So it's a completely different track, right? So some people can be like that. But it doesn't mean that you're not. So, for example, if I had known that there was an option for linguistics in my future, then I would have gone a lot crazier about learning linguistics when I could. Like when I'm a high school student or when I'm, just going to the library and reading about stuff, right? And so, if I knew that, for example, UCLA has a Buddhism program, right? And that Buddhism program is part of the East Asian studies. And if I had known that that was gonna be an option, if I had known that in my teenager years, and if I had known that in my 30s I'm gonna go crazy about Buddhism, that's something I would have really actively pursued, right? So you are really fighting against your limited set of knowledge when it comes to choices. And once you know of all the possibilities, you might be able to find that deep association into something that you really like. So what I'm saying is, some people can find what they like early, but it doesn't mean that they are necessarily better than you, right? Because as a cost of going deep into something, they will lack relatively breadth. This sounds like a curse, right? But it's not, because suppose we all have like limited attention span. We all have limited time, right? So isn't it fair that you will devote 100% of your time here, and other people will spend 50% and 50%. And if I'm expecting 100, then I'm kind of being greedy, right? So what I'm saying is, everything in the end, in the long run, tends to balance out. Because what is stopping the person who knew so early on what they wanted to do, suddenly having a midlife kind of a question of like, what would have happened if I tried that? Maybe I would have liked that. I know I've had that question for a really long time. And if you tried a lot of different things after you landed on something, the trade-off is, now you know you really want the final result. But at the same time, you might be thinking, man, if I had only known about this a little bit earlier. So what I'm saying is, at any point, if you choose to look at it bad, there's a way to look bad at something. And I'm trying to help you see the choices that are available for you so that you don't have to suffer. So if you look at all the fields of study and you find something that you like, good. If you found it, right? The whole point of getting educated in something is so that you can learn more about the things that you like. So go for that. Suppose you don't find what you like. Good. That's also good, because now you at least have a wide array of choices, right? So you can try this, you can try that, you can try this, you can try that. And coming back to the first point I made, education system, it feels formal, but it's not, right? It's something that somebody made. So suppose you got into college, but you're like, I don't think this is for me. Like, I don't think I don't learn anything here. Then, you know what? Your parents may be upset and other people may look at you differently, but who cares? It's your life now. You're an adult. And people finish college in later years all the time. So it's not a problem. So you're an adult now if you're about to head to college. It's time to be responsible for the choices that you make. That sounds scary. But at the same time, it also means that you can do whatever the fuck you do. And that's a really cool power to have. And naturally, like Uncle Ben says, with great power comes great responsibility. So I hope you keep these things in your mind as you pick your major. Also, if you don't know what it's kind of the last point. If you don't know what you're gonna do, right? You gotta think about this. You're most likely around the 18 years of age part, okay? You spent probably the first 10 years of your life barely getting to the point of barely getting ready to actually learn something. Like, you learn how to communicate, you learn how to sustain yourself, you learn how to move your body, you spend 10 years, basically half of your 18 years, getting set up. And in the later half, right, so much of it is spent for doing not study related things, right? Like, you go through puberty. And moreover, when you look at your life and you probably have some kind of a thing that you have done over the past however many years, and you can recall that it took a quite a bit of time to get to that skill level where you are, right? Okay, so what I'm saying is it's natural that you aren't that really well equipped with the knowledge. It's natural that you aren't really that like fluent and skilled in the act of studying. It's natural. But it's okay because this is where the true learning begins, right? And I'm not saying college is where it begins. No. Your adulthood, right? After college, you will continue to learn. When you talk to like the people who are in their associate positions and the entry level jobs after college, they're all gonna say one thing in common. Man, I wish I would have paid more attention to this class when I was in college. Happens to computer like engineers all the time. I know for sure it happens to like architects and other engineering disciplines as well. And so it's okay. Take the time and you're gonna learn how to study. You're gonna engage in the things that you are interested for the long run. It's not about college. I want you to look beyond that, farther than that, and take control of your life that comes with a lot of responsibilities.